Back again. Here we go. Chapter 3. All right. Knowledge and attachments. If my attachment to what I know blinds me to all available options, then my knowledge is controlling me. It is controlling my intention. It is creating my personal dream for me. But with awareness, my attachments comes the opportunity to take back the control and choose the life I live. Ever-changing meanings. I am only responsible for what I say. I am not responsible for what you hear. Don Miguel Ruiz. That's his dad. Symbols are representations that allow us to understand one another's experiences of life. Words are symbols whose meaning and definitions give us order to our experiences and allow us to communicate what we know. Words have an appealing but also very necessary and utilitarian function. They are the primary symbols allowing us to understand one another and create the agreements that build the dream of us, the dream of the planet. Take, for example, the word sun. In all of its translations, it's a symbol that represents an entity that illuminates our solar system. In the Toltec tradition, the sun represents the creation of life, where the earth is the mother, the sun is the father, and the merging of the two creates life. High energy, let's go. A symbol's meaning is derived from the agreement by a community, a culture, a nation, and so on. A definition is created by consensus. When enough of us say yes to that representation, we call this knowledge. For example, right now you are holding a book. It is a symbol that represents the object in your hands. Book is a symbol that represents the object that is in your hands. I could point to a book and you would know what it is because you can directly perceive it and you have past experience with it. You can still understand the concept of a book and visualize one when neither of us is holding one because of a previous tangible reference. There is very little at stake in agreeing that a bound collection of paper with words on it is called a book. However, there are symbols for ideas and concepts that we all manage differently based on our own perceptions and point of view. Love, spirit, morality. These symbols represent concepts that are defined by an agreement but can never fully be understood by someone else's description or explanation. These symbols are virtual in the sense that they are intangible. When we use symbols to stand for concepts, whether we perceive them as good or bad or neutral, we are trying to give form to the formless. The more people who agree with us about a definition of an intangible concept, the more that idea seems to take form. This is why we refer to the dream of the planet as an illusion. The meaning of symbols, the words that construct our ideas and beliefs, only feels solid through the agreement of the majority of the individuals who are part of that society or community. The building blocks of our society and our identity, or a family or nation, are malleable and subject to change as that individual dreams merge to create the dream of the planet through the agreement or disagreement, the yeses or nos. I'm going to reread that. Listen to this. The building blocks of our society and our identity as a family or nation are malleable and subject to change as individuals' dreams merge to create the dream of the planet through the agreement and disagreement, the yeses and the nos. For instance, when enough people come together and agree that a certain behavior is immoral, they have defined what it means to be immoral. That belief becomes more solid, and it is appearance if a law is created reflecting that agreement. That belief becomes more solid in appearance if the law is created reflecting that agreement. The people who engage in this behavior after the law is created are labeled immoral by the group that created the law. If a law is broken, then they'll be punished accordingly. But this consensus is an illusion because the idea of immorality never stops being virtual. It doesn't exist out there somewhere. It only exists in a mental agreement we make in order to maintain the illusion. All right, new day, same chapter. I'm going to try to finish this chapter up. Starting in the middle, but here we go. But this consensus is an illusion because the idea of immorality never stops being virtual. It doesn't exist out there somewhere. It only exists in the mental agreements we make. In order to maintain the illusion, the symbol and the attached belief require continuous support of the group of people. That continuous support is the very fuel that increases an individual's attachment to a belief. Because a virtual concept's solidity is dependent on the agreement, the need for it to be real can be overpowering and all-consuming. The attachment to a belief in the form of a symbol can become so great that those who ascribe to it cannot conceive of there being any other belief that could take its place. These symbols feel solid not only because we might agree with these virtual agreements, but also because we can take action based on them. When we take action based on our ideas, it seems like we have manifested them as reality. But a symbol's meaning is always still dependent on the agreement of the individual or society. For example, there was a brief moment in time when a tulip was more valuable than gold. In the 1600s, during the Dutch Golden Age, the price of a tulip was 10 times the annual income of a middle-class merchant. This exotic flower, which was brought to Vienna from the Ottoman Empire in the 1950s, was in high demand for its beauty and soon became a symbol of status. When the mosaic virus decimated the population, making the wait for a single blooming tulip 7 to 12 years, while also giving the infected tulips an even more exotic look, the price for the bulb skyrocketed. As traders' market for tulip bulbs developed, people began selling their personal property in order to buy bulbs and resell them later at a higher price. Unfortunately for those latecomers, the infatuation with tulips soon fizzled out and the market collapsed. When the agreement about tulips changed, many lost their financial worth, resulting in massive economic downturn. But this tulip never stopped being a tulip. The financial worth was the illusion. The nature of these types of agreements is that their definitions are always subject to change. When looked at this way, we can see how fragile and transient our definitions and meanings of ideas and concepts are. We can also see the great power they hold. This is precisely why we invest so much of our energy in trying to prove that our definitions and our interpretations of things are right. This is the fabric that constructs our reality. However, when we become so attached to that reality and to the meaning of the symbol that constructed that reality, we do not allow room for change and growth. We may find ourselves struggling, fighting and arguing with others and with ourselves to maintain our beliefs and definitions of the way things work, becoming prisoner of our own beliefs. It is those beliefs that we have constructed the story of us. No wonder they elicit such an emotional reaction. But by becoming aware of the nature of our beliefs, we have the power to change our stories and our agreements. Since knowledge is the bridge that allows us to understand one another, it is an instrument by which we can create the dream or the reality that we live in. Our intention or will is the force that gives knowledge its meaning, expressed through our bodies into the dream of the planet. When each of us express something, we express it from the point of view of what we know. Listen closely, but receive all the words and other symbols with skepticism. When you let go of your attachment to the meaning and the perceived truth that you apply to words and symbols, mine, yours, and others, you have the freedom to step back and decide for yourself if those meanings reflect your experience in life. In addition, by openly listening to someone else's expression of their knowledge without holding an attachment of what those symbols mean, you have the opportunity to better understand them. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and switch to just voice recording because I'm using way too much storage on my phone and I'll have to go through it and clean it up. Alright, picking up where we left off, attachments and our sense of self. When my family and I were moving from Arizona to North California, my little girl Audrey was 3 years old and had been in preschool for about a month. She loved the Arizona home and her school. So when we told her that we were moving and she would be starting a new school, she became upset. "No, Dad, my school, my house, mine," she cried. In the days that followed, she clung to everything in her life. Us, her toys, her best friend at school, even her school principal. My wife and I kept telling her that she was going to be fine. She was in a new school with new friends, and it would all be great. When we picked her up from school the last day, Audrey flatly refused to leave. Hiding behind the principal's leg, in that moment, I paid very close attention to her. I imagined what the situation was like from her point of view. Everything she knew was going away. Her whole world was going to change, and she didn't know who or what was going to remain. She grabbed hold of her friend Leo as he approached. "My Leo," she cried. We eventually convinced her that it was time to go, and she reluctantly released her grasp on those things she held so dear. When we placed ourselves in a safety zone where we feel comfortable and secure, and we are firmly entrenched in "this is who I am" mindset, the worst thing imaginable is that it will all go away. And yet this happens again and again in varying degrees throughout our lives. When I believe something must stay in its rightful place exactly as it is for me to be okay, I've become attached to it. I have confused this external thing with who I am. If that external thing changes, and everything else does, how do I react? If I have placed my sense of self in it, then I have to defend it. I have to argue for it. I have to come up with definitions and meanings. In short, I have created an attachment. I know that I've put an attachment to a thing out there outside of myself when a fear of change takes hold of me. In change, the world I know can disappear, forcing me to go into the uncomfortable darkness of not knowing. But change is inevitable. It arises time and time again throughout our lives. A relationship ends, we lose a job, leave a home, get a new wrinkle, a gray hair, or experience the death of a loved one, and so on. If I look at all the things I have placed my sense of self in, I will find my identity is placed in it. Fear comes when these things are threatened. Because my attachment, I have interpreted these things as part of myself. Thus, as attachment is created to resist the possibility of that loss. When we look closely, we can notice how we're always defending the object of our attachment in one way or another. In essence, we are defending our definition of self. This is what my little girl does when she goes around claiming mine. It's not the object that she is defending, it's her sense of self. I am happy to report that as soon as Audrey walked through the door to her new home, she became excited. She ran to her new room and exclaimed, "My room. The change I have for you is the change of your agreement. You see yourself as the challenge I have for you is to change your agreement, to see yourself as a perfect human being, and to realize that there is no object, idea, or knowledge that you need to be complete. You are perfect because you are alive in this present moment, transforming continuously with life. If we could see ourselves as perfect just the way we are, because we are alive in this moment, we are free. Our attachments no longer define us. Instead, the knowledge we gather becomes a tool that can help us decide how we want to engage in dreams, the personal and collective, and how we choose to act is the manifestation of our intention. Looking at the story of your life, do you take action as dictated by your attachment to knowledge, or do you use knowledge to take action based on the awareness of your present moment? My grandmother asked me many years ago, is knowledge controlling you, or are you controlling knowledge? You could always answer this for yourself when you come to know how attached you are to your knowledge, your beliefs, or something outside of yourself. When I was first confronted with this question, I did not know that knowledge could lead us astray, causing us to suffer unless we take the helm. I did not know how to answer my grandmother's question. My grandmother believed that every attachment I form allows knowledge to control me. She spoke of heaven and hell, demons and angels, and various levels of attachment and consequences associated with them. This was her language, and it fit the experiences and context of her life. In the next chapter, I'll explain the same teachings using an analogy reflecting our modern dream. Alright, that was the end of chapter 3, and now we actually get a start on the first level of the 5 levels of attachment. There's a couple points that I really enjoyed in this one. Specifically, it's talking about, identifying with an idea, and then when that idea is challenged, we feel threatened, right? We could criticize our beliefs And if we can criticize our beliefs if we can acknowledge valid criticism, that indicates less of an attachment. Alright, that's the end of this one. I'll make another one of these for chapter 4 next time. Alright, see ya.